I think leaders always have room to become better managers, whether they've been a manager for decades or have just become a manager. And as I help leaders become better managers, I have 5 go-to questions that I think enable more connection between managers and direct reports. Welcome to You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. You are ambitious in life and in your career, but something is missing. You want to bring more of your passion to what you do. Because let's be honest, you pour a ton into your work, and it needs to mean more. I'm your host, Laura Eigel. I'm a mom, wife, PhD, coach, advocate, introvert, and indoor rowing fanatic. I'm passionate about living a life that's in line with my values. We'll give you the actionable tips and tools you need to lead with your values, make a difference, and have career success. The world needs more diversity and authenticity in the top jobs at organizations. Your leadership belongs there. You belong in the C-Suite. Hi there, friends. My first book, Values First: How Knowing Your Core Beliefs Can Get You the Life and Career You Want, is now out in the world. Thank you so much for your support of the book. With your help, we are a #1 Amazon bestseller in the business ethics category and a #1 new release for time management in business and business etiquette. I have poured my heart into this book with personal stories and stories from my coaching clients using the Values First framework. Between the constant pressure of job performance and demands on your time, it's easy to lose sight of your values, letting them shift out of alignment. Those simple misalignments are keeping you from feeling joyful and fulfilled. Learn how to recenter your life and career around what truly matters to you. Order Values First now at your favorite independent bookstore or at Barnes & Noble or Amazon. I want to make sure that you are the first to know about every book activity that we have in store, including virtual and in-person events. Stay up to date by joining our list at thecatchgroup.com/valuesfirst. That's thecatchgroup.com/valuesfirst. Welcome to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. I'm excited to chat with you today about the 5 questions you should ask your direct report. Whether you've just started working with your team or you've been working with them for years, these are the top things I think that you should know about your direct reports to build connection. Let's get started. Think about a time that you worked for a manager that you didn't like. Somebody that you might not have gotten along with very well. What was that like? I've had a career of amazing and some not so amazing managers. The ones that weren't so great for me, they micromanaged. They changed their minds often. They didn't give me feedback. They didn't utilize the talents on their team. They stifled them. Now think about a time that you worked for a manager that you loved. What was that like? I'm so grateful to have worked for some amazing leaders who are still my mentors and friends. They valued me. They listened to me. They empowered me. They trusted me. They had tough conversations with me that challenged me, but most of all, they knew me. Now, in the work that I do with my clients, I get to work with senior leaders who have some very big teams and some leaders who have small teams. I work with leaders who have been managers for decades. And I also get to train leaders who have just become managers for the first time. The best managers that I've seen are connected to their direct reports. They meet with them regularly. They empower their teams. They build trust with them by building connection. The good managers, they listen more than they talk. And how do they do this? It's because they prioritize their time with their direct reports. When we think about how much time a leader spends with their people versus in the business, in their job, the best leaders that I know do not default to spending all their time in the business. They default their time to spending their time with their people. They're spending at least half of their time with their people, sometimes more. Yeah, I know you might be thinking, well, how can an executive spend more time with their people than in the business? Easy, because they trust and empower their teams to get stuff done. I think leaders always always have room to become better managers, whether they've been a manager for decades or have just become a manager. And as I help leaders become better managers, I have 5 go-to questions that I think enable more connection between managers and direct reports. Now, don't feel bad if you don't know the answers to these. These are very tangible, tactical things that you can put into place immediately. And the way that you do that, spend time with your direct reports and ask them, build that connection. Here are the top 5 questions I think you need to be asking your direct reports. Number 1, how do you like to be recognized? Number 2, how do you like to give and receive feedback? Number 3, how do you like to learn? Number 4, what are your values? Number 5, what's most important for your well-being right now? So let's dig into each of these a little bit more and why I love these questions so much. The first one, how do you like to be recognized? Some people do not care about recognition, but others do. It might be their highest motivator. And guess what? We usually recognize people in the way that we like to be recognized. So here's a quick story. I used to work for a leader earlier in my career that loved building connection, but the way that he loved doing that and the way he loved being recognized is by celebrating others outside of work, usually going to like a happy hour to celebrate a team win or promotion or whatever it was. And so we would do that. He would put those on the calendar pretty regularly. Well, at one point in my life, that was fun to me. And then, I had a longer commute, and then we had a family, and there was nothing more that I did not want to do than that. I did not want to extend my workday and my commute to not be with my family. Like that was just not interesting to me anymore. And it felt a lot less like recognition. And it was almost sometimes demotivating because then I didn't get that visibility. I didn't get this connection with the team and with him and all those kinds of things. So remember, we are usually recognizing people how we like to be recognized. So first, know that about yourself. How do you like to be recognized and what are you doing for people? But really, it's not about you. It's about them. How do they like to be recognized? So ask them, even if you like recognition, you might recognize people in very open forums. Not all people like that. Some people just like a note, a handwritten note, or a CC on an email, something that doesn't draw so much attention, right? I'm an introvert. Last thing I want you to do is give me an unexpected award in front of some people that I have to say something that's not planned. Like, please don't do that. And if you don't like recognition for yourself, if that's not a motivator for you, guess what? You may not be doing anything for anyone because it's not top of mind. And I don't want you to feel bad about that. I want you to do something about it. So even if you need to, I want you to schedule it in. I don't care if it feels forced to you. The people who like to be recognized won't feel like it's forced. They will see that you are trying. So schedule it in and recognize others. But first and foremost, ask your direct reports, how do you like to be recognized? And then do that in the way that they like to be recognized. The second question, how do you like to give and receive feedback? So I love this question because to build trust, you need to have a culture of feedback. So let's start with that receiving feedback. How do they want to receive feedback from you, right? You need to create space for having these conversations. Not just feedback for improvement, right? It's not just about that. It's feedback for reinforcement too. It goes back to that idea of recognition. Positive feedback is a form of recognition. But how do they want to receive that? Is it a quick side conversation after a meeting? Is it a bulleted email list? What is it to them? How do they want to receive feedback? Probably not in front of a lot of people, whatever it is. How do they like to receive feedback? And then the second part of the question, how do they like to give feedback? Now, this might differ than how they receive feedback, right? So I love feedback, so I will take it in any way people will give it to me. Of course, if I have my preference for myself, it would be, hey, take me to the side, give me the feedback, or send a note, whatever it is. But in terms of direct reports, if they're going to give you feedback, I want them to be comfortable with it, because otherwise they're just not going to give it to me. So, how do they like to give feedback? Do they need time to think through it? Do you need to give them a heads up so they can think through their thoughts before they give you feedback? Otherwise, they might feel like they're on the spot. But this idea of setting the tone and asking them how they like to give feedback sets that expectation that you will be asking for feedback for yourself or for other people, the team, all of those kinds of things. So that second question is really important. How do you like to give and receive feedback? The third question, how do you like to learn? This could be very indicative of how you even reward people too. So some people love to go to conferences, reading, podcasts, all that kind of stuff. But some people hate that. Like, hey, please do not give me one more thing to read. That's like more work. For me, I love a good podcast. I love a good business book. But some people need more very tactical things like on the job experience, a template, a class, to shadow someone, whatever it is. Figure out how they like to learn and how they learn best. And it might be different depending on the subject matter. But this is another really great way to figure out how to reward and recognize somebody. You might think that it's something that they like and it might feel like a reward, or it might feel like extra work, and you don't want to be putting extra work on people if that's the intent. So, how do you like to learn? Third favorite question. The fourth most favorite question I love, especially right now, is what's most important for your well-being right now? What's most important for your well-being right now? For some, this may mean exercise, nutrition, getting more sleep, less travel, a hybrid work schedule, quality time with family, taking Friday afternoons off, drinking more water, whatever it is, ask them. Also share what yours is and model that behavior. Make sure that your team is getting their well-being goals met too. And the fifth question, and this should not come to a surprise to anyone if you're listening to this podcast, what are your values? Or simply said, what matters most to you? I know what my values are. So my values are family, growth, development, achievement, advocacy, and balance. And some of these things kind of overlap with some of the answers to these other questions, right? So for instance, growth and development, I like feedback, I'm going to give it. Might be how I like to be rewarded, with how I like to learn, all those kinds of things. You'll find the same with your direct reports, right? A lot of these questions kind of overlap with each other. But remember, values can change over time, or one value may be more important in one season of life or another. So if you don't know what your direct reports values are, ask them. And the same for you. If you don't know what your values are, dig in deep so that when you have this conversation with them, you can share what yours are too. So I may have a few tools for you on that, or even a book for you to read, right? So if you or your direct reports don't know what your core values are, grab my newly released book, Values First: How Knowing Your Core Beliefs Can Get You the Life and Career You Want. It comes with this amazing workbook, lots of really great exercises that you can use for you and your team to understand what matters most to you and dig into those core values so that you can show up and build more connection and really understand what makes them tick, what makes them be motivated for different things. Okay, so I know I said 5 questions, but here's an extra question. This is a bonus one. The last thing I usually like to ask in kind of every single meeting, I save some time at the end in each one-on-one with direct reports, is how can I support you? Or what support do you need from me today? So usually the question is, no, I'm good. I don't need anything today. But sometimes it's, hey, I really need you to remove this obstacle for me. Or, hey, I haven't gotten a response back from so-and-so leader. Can you ping them to see if you can get that? Or, oh, hey, remember, I'm just reminding you I'm taking vacation. So I don't need anything except for the fact to remind you that I'm going on vacation, and that if you need anything from me, let me know before I go. So This question, I think, is a very important one for you to model and to model consistently. How can I support you? So remember, with any of these questions, these 5 questions, really 6, let's review them again. How do you like to be recognized? How do you like to give and receive feedback? How do you like to learn? What are your core values? What's most important for your well-being right now? And the bonus question, how can I support you today? These are all questions to have your direct report, your team. And remember, this is a two-way street. Have this conversation and share your answers to these questions with your direct report. Think of all of the things that you can learn about each other. And if your manager hasn't asked you any of these things, don't let that stop you from sharing these with them. Tell your manager that you want to start bringing in one of these questions into your one-on-one each week or in a team meeting. Start with one question per team meeting and open it up with a team connection exercise. And over the course of several weeks or several months, you'll get to know so much more about your manager and your team. That wraps up this week's episode. Remember, your leadership belongs here. You belong in the C-suite. I want to thank you so much for listening to the You Belong in the C-Suite podcast. If you are enjoying this content, please remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts. By leaving a review, you are helping others find this content. We will be featuring 5-star reviews on air in upcoming episodes. Editing and support for the podcast is done by S&E Podcast Management. To get more tips and tools to help you live a life guided by your values, go to thecatchgroup.com. Keep your boundaries and take care.